on warning signs. Okay, these are pretty classic in terms of the person talks about suicide. You see them settling their affairs, preoccupation with death, a history of attempts, sudden, unexplained calmness. Okay, those are some of the more basic ones that I know I'm familiar with. You know, one of the myths about suicide is that if I think you might be suicidal, it's best for me not to ask you about it because then I'll implant the idea. It's almost as though I'm afraid of suggesting it to you, and I'm sure that you are certainly familiar with that particular myth.
Yeah, we see that a lot. It'll come up when we're doing a lot of our talks in high schools about you don't want to say anything to anybody, and one of the things we'll do as an example is maybe take the teacher or somebody in the class that is guaranteed us they haven't been suicidal and ask them, are they thinking about it? And they say no, and then over the course of the 50 minutes, come back to them every once in a while, now are you thinking about it? To kind of emphasize that idea that you don't really plant the seed. If somebody's suicidal, whatever the mechanism is there, they're thinking about killing themselves, but making the suggestion isn't going to cause somebody to go out and say, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that?
Why didn't I think of killing myself?
It doesn't happen that way.
Okay, well, but where do you think it comes from, this belief that, well, if you say you're suicidal, you're not really? I mean, do you know any history about where that comes from, or is that your experience?
I think of a lot of it might go back to the whole denial idea. I mean, this is a subject we don't want to talk about. Let's stay clear of it, and that's one way of keeping from talking about it, is to believe if we do talk about it, it might make somebody suicidal.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay,
so there's that idea that if someone is talking about it, sometimes we may not take them as seriously because we think that maybe they're just trying to get attention, or because I know a common response people have to suicide attempts, you know, family members and friends, is anger, actually. I mean, that idea of not being included in that decision. Is that your experience?
For the family members to be angry about it? Yes, that is true, but I believe that that's also one of the steps to grieving, and probably even behind the fact that people are reluctant to talk about it is fear.
Yes.
There's a fear that you're going to lose this person, and so then if you talk to them and then comes in the concept of you're giving them the idea, but I believe the motivator there just probably is a lot of fear.
That's very, very human, isn't it? This idea of settling affairs, I mean, what do we normally see with that? I mean, getting our bills paid?
Giving away prized possessions.
Okay.
Like the gal in the movie Sissy Spacek, she had everything tagged and ready to go to Goodwill, and so she had thought it all out and she was giving away things. But with people in general, they might have prized possessions and they start giving them away. Or I heard a story of a gal who lined up trinkets on a windowsill, little knickknacks that were her favorite things, and each day she took one off, and until she got to the last one, and that's when she made her attempt.
Okay.
And as far as what you were saying about people being reluctant to talk about suicide with someone they think that is planning it, actually that's absolutely the best thing they can do, is talk, and to be direct. To say, are you thinking of killing yourself?
Okay.
Not hedging around the bush, but making it open and okay to talk to them about it.
Okay. Yeah, not maybe using a euphemism, but going ahead and just jumping out there and asking. It's sort of like confronting your worst fear.
If you don't exhibit a fear of talking about it, then it's going to make it okay for the person who's suicidal to say, oh, yes, and this is what, and of course there's other things you want to do in conjunction with that, such as asking when, if they have a plan.
So maybe being afraid, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but having the courage to continue to ask for more details. How about this is a key one, I know as a therapist. One of the first things I want to know is the person's history of attempts. I mean, my understanding is one of the best indicators is a history of prior suicidal behavior. But you know, there's also this issue of indirect suicidal behavior. You know, where somebody doesn't actually take out a gun, but maybe, what, a history of careless driving, or what, are you familiar with that?
Well, and again, we know statistically that abusers, drug or alcohol abusers, are 6 times more likely to attempt than the general population. So I think that's one of those secondary ways, if you will, of doing it, of attempting suicide. To get back to your issue about prior attempts, again, statistically, we know that once somebody's attempted, they're 40 times more likely to attempt than the general population. So that's a history that always stays with them.
Okay.
That chance that this has been an option for them in the past, and they can revert back to choosing that option.
Well, and you know what, something interesting that's come up for me from time to time when working with people who have a history of suicide, the opposite, or suicide attempts, the opposite is that because they know it's always an option, they never make an attempt. It's sort of like that's their ultimate comfort zone, which is, okay, I'll walk through the divorce. You know, if it gets really bad, I could always choose to die. And somehow that seems to give them the courage to go ahead and stick around a little longer.
I think that's why the hotline works so well for a lot of people, is because now they're able to talk about it and see it through and know this is an option, and this person on the other end isn't condemning me for thinking of doing this, and maybe I'll just wait it until tomorrow.
Okay. So maybe sleep on it and think about it some more. What is the in your experience, this idea of giving it 24 hours? I mean, how often do people really turn around when they, you know, they get a good night's sleep and they think it through?
I don't know if there's any magic like 24 hours. I think it's a matter of letting them, for us on the phones, letting them vent whatever that pressure, that pain is. Being able to get into it, if you will, if you think of the analogy of a cut on the arm that's scabbed over, and that pus is still there. I mean,
Yep.
it's festering, and what we try to do is pick away at that a little bit to let the pus run out and
Yep.
expose itself, and let that pain out a little bit, which is what we try to do on the hotline. You know, the 24 hours, I don't know. I think people, if you're able, what people tend to do during that whatever period of time is start to recoup their resources.
Okay.
Okay, I can do this. I've got this I can fall back on. This is something I did in the past that helped. And that's where I think that idea of time, if you can create time for them, or they can create their own time, during the course of that time, they're going to develop resources they can fall back on that are going to help out.
Okay.
And we help them. We will help them decide some of the options they might have that they can't see after they've had their time to talk and they're in a place where they're willing to hear some of it.
Okay.
We have resources. We have lots and lots of referrals. So we're able to give them options.
Okay,
that
so
they might not
maybe
think of.
not quite as stuck. In fact, let's take a look at what we can do about this since we've entered into this topic. How we can help. Well, the first one you've mentioned, which is to talk and to listen without being judgmental or giving advice. Don't try to talk them out of their feelings. Don't say, pull yourself together or snap out of it. Pay attention to your feelings, I guess, as the listener, and tell them how this impacts you. Ask if they want to die. You're not going to give them the idea. If yes, assess the lethality. How are they planning to do this? And lastly, get help. Don't keep it a secret. Okay, in terms of being judgmental or giving advice or talking them out of their feelings, I would imagine that particularly when you were first starting out as counselors on the phones, I mean, wasn't there a temptation to want to do that?
Sure was.
To explain to them all the reasons? Yeah.
Still is.
Okay.
It's very human to want to tell someone how to do it better, how to do it differently.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's a challenge, I know, for me on the phones to keep it to myself and let them come up with their solutions.
Okay.
But one of the things that it does when you do give advice or offer something that they haven't asked for is it causes them, the caller, to want to shut down.
Ah, okay, that's an important piece. So then it can become about us instead of them because of our own anxiety.
Exactly. And it says to the person at risk, anytime we do that with a friend, you know, a family member or kids, and we start telling them what to do, then it devalues where they're at. You know, why couldn't I think of that? Why didn't I see all those options? Whereas when you sit there and listen, and I know she had the talk and listen first, I think the listen should go first and the talk is way after.
Okay.
It values them.
Okay.
They have importance, and what they're feeling is significant, and it is important. And their ability to express that and acknowledging that, you know, I might not know where you're at or what this is all about for you, but whatever it is, it's valid, it's legitimate. Okay. Why you're feeling this way it's okay to feel that, whatever it is.
That's right. So really, you know, as a helper, there comes to that point where, you know, we've talked about it, we've listened. In terms of actually intervening, part of our thing was assessing lethality and getting some help. What do you do? Let's say I'm on the phone with you and I say, you know what, I really feel like this is what I need to do. What happens then from your end? I mean, do you call the police or?
I would want to talk to you more about why you felt that way.
Okay, but if I said, you know, I appreciate your support, but I really do think I need to go and kill myself at this point. I mean, I feel like there really isn't any other option.
I mean, the assessment we do is part of a program that came out of Southern California called the Lettieri Scale,
Okay.
out of the Center for the Study of Human Destructive Behavior.
Wow.
And it's a 7-point scale. We concentrate on 3, which is the current plan they have, the prior attempts that they've made, and what their resources are. And we use the current plan and the prior attempt to evaluate where they're at.
Okay.
How close are they? How well have they thought this out? Do they have the means to do it? And then resources is what we try to draw on to let them see that maybe there's another option, that maybe they've got something else they can turn to, that maybe their killing themselves is going to have an impact on their pet cat.
Yeah.
And we could sit here and think, oh, isn't that trite and trivial? But if we're talking about saving, well, we don't save their lives. If we're talking about helping somebody make that decision and continue existing, that decision to stay and hang on and be there for their cat might be the,
and
the thing that
you never know what it is.
Yeah.
We're going to need to close, but and I wish we had more time to talk. This is such a broad topic. I thank you so much for your time. We have Jim Angelo, Pam Whisnant from the Suicide Prevention. Thank you for being with us. Tune in next week as we gain some insights into single parenting. I'm Mary Cook. Good night.
Topic suggestions, write to Bay Area Psychology at 1723 Hamilton Avenue, Suite A, San Jose, California 951.